Welcome to the Built on Purpose podcast, where we talk with purpose-driven professionals about the challenges and triumphs of trying to make the world a better place through business. I'm your host, John Natoli, co-founder and president of Pollen Brands, a digital branding agency empowering purpose-driven professionals with design and digital ideation and activation, here at the Center for Social Innovation in New York and worldwide. Today, we're speaking with Sarah Villafranco, founder of the natural skincare brand Osmia, creator of gorgeous artisanal soaps, former emergency room doctor, and Pollen Brands client. We'll talk about how Sarah found her true purpose again, going from emergency room doctor to founder of Osmia, facing the trials of her former life before founding Osmia and transforming into the confident entrepreneurial woman that she is today, giving a sense of personal service to digital e-commerce customers, building a team of people who care almost as much as you do, and helping people see the value in a more expensive product using purpose. Hey Sarah, thanks so much for joining us. I've explained what Osmia is, so
Sure.
Everybody kind of knows, but I would love for you, in your own words, to explain what Osmia is and what Osmia means to you.
Yeah. It's sort of a hard word to pronounce and not one that very many people are familiar with, but it's essentially a nerdy medical reference. So I took it from my previous years in the world of medicine. The word anosmia means the inability to smell. And so I sort of took off the an and just used osmia to mean a sense of smell and also to mean it's just sort of a reminder to sense your life, to really absorb the rich textures and use your senses in ways that seem mundane, but can make your moments much fuller.
Yeah. So, I know, because I know your products and I use them all the time, kind of how that has translated into your products and what they do. And, just taking a bar of soap, for example, which is something that somebody totally takes for granted, and literally the texture of it, the ripple effect that you've created on it, the different colors, the having the ingredients visible on it and everything, I could tell is like all part of that sensory exploration. Where did that inspiration come from? I know you were taking a soap making class, and kind of how did that strike you to do that?
I was at sort of this strange, it was a crossroads with more than two roads, like a lot of just like a traffic circle of life. And I had a lot going on. So I had a new baby and a sick mom who died shortly afterwards, and then was feeling sort of unfulfilled in the practice of emergency medicine, which I had been doing for 10 years. So there was something about it that didn't, while it was a super cool job and it made for the best dinner party stories, I would leave just feeling depleted. I didn't feel that I had infused anybody with a real meaningful sort of piece of medicine where I was truly healing. I mean, I stitched people up and stuff, and that was helpful, but there was something missing, some sort of healing element that was missing for me. And like I said, it's sort of a complicated background, but I mean, there's a lot going on in Western medicine now that doesn't seem consistent with the vows I took as a Western physician in medical school. So I would watch a lot of my colleagues, be more inclined to prescribe medication than to prescribe a commitment to a 20-minute walk every day.
Right.
So all of that sort of turbulence within me made me feel like I wanted to just try some new things. And I saw a local soap making class and I said, well, God, that sounds kind of cool. And I went, and it was definitely a sort of a light switch that flipped in my brain that day, where I thought, this is what I want to do. And it was sort of excruciating because it's a lot of school to become a board certified ER doctor. Yeah, right. And now I want to make soap. I couldn't make that make sense for a long time, but the process of making soap was the best blend to me of super hard science, where on a molecule to molecule basis, you have to match up or you don't get soap.
Right.
And then this endless array of colors and textures and scents that you could bring into every bar.
Yeah.
So, you can't do that in medicine. You can't just say like, I'm going to give you 17 milligrams
Right.
of Lasix today because that just feels good to me. That's just
or do
not really
some kind
how
of like fancy stitch because it looks pretty. Right.
Yeah. So I think I was missing my creative calling, and when I took that class, I found it.
That's cool. That's excellent. Now, I've spoken to a lot of purpose-driven entrepreneurs, and being one myself, I kind of know like that oftentimes when you have that pivotal moment or you have that realization, then you decide to commit to it, it sets off this chain reaction of sort of other decisions and other changes that you make in your life. Did you experience that same thing?
Well, I mean, I think it was a pivotal decision and a pivotal moment, but it took a long time for it to take shape. I knew it was important that day during the soap making class. I thought something shifted just now, but it took quite a bit of work to figure out what I really wanted to do with that shift. It was really hard for me to think about the idea of letting go of medicine. Now I realize I haven't, but at the time I had to explore all of that pretty deeply. There's a little bit of like an ego piece where, it's sort of like a social demotion from MD to soap maker. And that, then I realized, well, that's all not very important in the long run. And then after losing my mom, that sort of shortened the timeline of my own life potentially. I mean, I could live to be 90 or I could die at 64 like she did. So, not knowing that, I thought I don't want to come home from work not feeling like if I'm going to be a career woman and take time away from my family to do that, I don't want to come home feeling like I'm not sure what I did today.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can relate to that strongly as a parent.
you are quite the family man.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what was it like to kind of once you actually did make the change? Did you do that in a gradual way where you're kind of doing this on the side, or did you just quit and start Osmia?
Yeah, definitely not the latter. I had a friend who had a house with like an empty storage room, and we converted it, and we referred to it as the meth lab for a couple of years. And I pretty much got these glasses and wore them like in the meth lab for 2 years while I formulated 50 plus products. I started with soap, and I was making soap in every vessel. Like I'd grab people's empty milk cartons and be like, can I have this? And then it graduated from soap making to full skincare. And I've studied this stuff now, from aromatherapy to natural skincare, more than, I hate for any of my previous patients to hear this, but more than I studied anything in medical school. Just because it's
the life
so
of an entrepreneur.
Fascinating and interesting to me. Yeah. But I did that for like 2 years. I'd work a few shifts a week in the ER, and I'd work the rest of the hours in the lab developing products. And then when I knew I was at a point of viability with the line, that I thought this is a collection that would do okay. That was the real like leap of faith moment where I did all of the long runs and soul searching, and sort of like asking my dead mom to give me a sign, it never really came, except that I finally just I know about myself, thanks to great parents, that if I set my mind to something, I can do it. But I also knew that if I kept one foot in the world of medicine and one foot in this, neither would ever be right.
Yeah.
And I couldn't leave Osmia at that point. I was so invested and so passionate about it that I had to leave medicine.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, or leave the ER. That's like a more accurate. I still think I'm practicing medicine.
Right.
But.
Well, I think that's a really interesting thing about the Osmia brand, is that people kind of rely on you for that expertise and that knowledge. And it's one of the aspects, I think, that you've really brought to the table as a digital entrepreneur, where, most of your sales are done online, and you're kind of bringing this level of almost bedside manner practice to servicing your customers. Can you explain a little bit sort of how that evolved? If that was just instinct for you to do that, or, you know, if you were receiving so many questions that it just wasn't really a choice, or, you know, how did that kind of come about?
I think I went into medicine because I wanted to touch people. And I think, you know, I practiced, you know, for 10 years and then 4 years of school before that. So, I remember as a third year medical student, I was with a patient one day, and I'd been awake for about 40 hours and was pretty bleary eyed. And she was having a double mastectomy. And I had been with her through the pre-op period, and she went into surgery, and my relief came and said, you know, go ahead, like, go get some sleep. And I couldn't go because I thought that's just crazy that I wouldn't be there when she came out. And I had a little bottle of some sort of like lavender oil or something with me. And I've always had lotions and potions in my life. And I waited around until she got out of surgery, and I put some of that on my hands. And I was just standing behind her at the head of her bed, just massaging her shoulders while she started to come out of anesthesia. Mm-hmm. And a few times as she was coming out, she would like go like this, like reaching in the air, and, you know, she was definitely confused. And finally she figured out that I was back there, and she pulled my hand until I came around the bed, and she looked at me and she said, you know, I thought you were an angel. And I thought, that's medicine. That this woman just had this huge life-altering surgery and has so much to cope with, mm-hmm. you know, up until this point and still, you know, to come. Yeah. And somehow the touch of my hands and the smell of that essential oil was what got through to her. Yeah. That's, you know. Yeah, it's like the moments in between that really matter, you know. As an ER doctor, you deal with emergencies, these big moments that happen in people's lives, these big critical moments that we think of as the important things, but it's what prepared you for that is how you're going to deal with it, and what happens in between and afterwards is, I think, kind of what Osmia is about, is living that fully, you know. Yeah, and I realized that how impactful something like that could be, I think, at that moment. And I don't know that I consciously stored it then, but when I started working with the oils again and, you know, sort of got to know them all, I sort of wove that back, that thread back through. And I thought, wow, this stuff really is powerful medicine too, however you use it. Right. From the actual aromatherapy that happens to the act of caring for yourself. So I guess in terms of, you know, that bedside manner, you know, that's what I want to remind people, is that they are worth that investment of their own time and money and energy to come into their senses for a moment, so that they are able to bring sort of a greater awareness and appreciation to the mundane moments that make up like 98% of our lives, right? Absolutely. Yeah. What's the point if you're not going to enjoy those kind of moments, right? Yeah. So, I mean, coming from such a unique story of going from an ER MD to soap maker and starting this and the events in your life, to now building a team of people who are meant to embody the Osmia brand. Mm-hmm. How has that been in terms of teaching them sort of what is this all about, and how do we represent Osmia? And I don't want to say it, I almost don't want to say it in terms of training your staff, mm-hmm. but how do you imbue them with that meaning and that mm-hmm. kind of mentality? I mean, I think that there's a process of sort of natural selection that does happen where, you know, for the most part, you know, somebody walks in here and I'm going to have a sense of whether there's a complementary energy or not, whether they sort of seem like the type of people who value what we're preaching. Right. You know, I have had a couple of people that I've worked with in the past where, you know, they're sort of, I had one young woman who was a cigarette smoker, and I had to say, like, you can't come here smelling like smoke, and you can't go outside during lunch for a cigarette because the cigarette smoke can't come back in here. And I'm mm-hmm. so sorry to impact your personal life that way, but more than that, I sort of knew that it probably ultimately this wasn't going to resonate for her, that
Right.
this way of life didn't feel as true to her as it does for a lot of the people who end up staying.
Yeah.
So I think, there is, people do sort of self-select. But, and I don't think you can put a square peg in a round hole. I think, I've had times where I sort of didn't listen to my instinct about whether someone was authentic as far as the way they were contributing to the brand. And that inauthenticity will bleed through eventually.
Yeah. Right.
So I think that's been a good lesson for me, to listen to my instinct when I kind of know either someone's heart isn't in it, or that the life they lead when they walk out the door is just too different from what
Right.
we're doing here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost reflective of the process that you had to go through and being true to yourself and going through some of that soul searching to decide to leave the ER and come into this. Some people can't do that. Some people will kind of kid themselves for a long time and say, I work for Osmia and I'm going to stay here, and they won't do it themselves. And that's one of the challenges of running a team and having to make hard decisions like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, that's not a skill. I mean, it's a really different, structure than the ER was. I mean, I worked with a team in the ER too, right? But in some ways they were, there was like a sort of an established chain there.
Hierarchy.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that because, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that nurses do that I, A, would never want to do. Mm-hmm. God bless them. And B, I don't have that skill set. But it just wasn't, like I was a good leader there, but it wasn't that they were sort of looking to me. That the ER has its own heartbeat, its own cadence, and you can fit into it or be disruptive to it. And that's sort of a different thing than here. Here, this whole place, from the building we're in to the desk I'm sitting at to the, products that are flying off the shelves, like it all came from the spark of me. Mm-hmm. And so that's a much bigger responsibility. I'm not stepping into something. I've created something. Yeah. And now I, want to show up and live it and breathe it, and I think one of the big things that's been really hard for me as a boss is to separate the business from my passion. I want to keep them very much intertwined, but becoming a business woman when it comes to, staffing decisions and, team building and, just this year, I have brought in, some new people, including a new sort of chief operating officer who just has a lot of amazing corporate experience and understands how these things, how companies grow. I think at the beginning I thought, well, I'm just going to try this thing.
Right.
I wasn't, man, we're going to be in however many retailers and however many doors, and that wasn't my way. I just was like, I'm so excited. I love doing this stuff. But it's grown and it continues to grow. And so, having someone in here sort of at my right hand who brings a totally different skill set and to whom I will defer on a lot of stuff because I go, God, that's not great. That's a great idea. I would never have thought to do it this way.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So learning where to stay really strong in who you are and in your passion and your drive and sharing that enthusiasm, and when to just totally pull back and give someone else the wheel.
Yeah. And it's all kind of in the name of the purpose, right? It's bigger than yourself, and it's bigger than ego and anything like that. And it says, well, if this is in service of what we're trying to do here, then let's do it. And it doesn't matter if I'm doing it or if somebody else is doing it, it's getting done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about sort of some of the decisions that you've had to make in terms of beyond just the product, beyond the soaps, beyond the lotions and the products, but you're very passionate about the entire customer experience. What is it packaged in? How does it arrive? And what kind of impact do you feel like that has had on the success of Osmia?
A big one. I always said that I would tell people to imagine walking down a little like cobblestone side street in Paris, and you see like a door, and you kind of peek in the window, and you see that they make cool things in there, and you kind of go in, and the door tinkles, and somebody walks out and greets you and hands you things to smell or touch or try on or whatever it is. That's what makes you interested in a thing, and it's what makes you sense it. Mm-hmm. And so I've tried to infuse everything we've done here with that. So from the beginning, every order that has ever been sent out from our store has a note with human handwriting on it. There was a time at the beginning when I used to write, Dear John, I hope everything is great with you and the kids. And I wrote essentially a giant postcard to every customer because I was so excited that they placed an order. Now we have a volume that's not sustainable, but we do, my staff, they all have little watercolor paper cards with our logo, and on every card they write their name, and they write something like enjoy or happy holidays or whatever it is, and they sign their name, and they put their own email address so that the person who gets that order knows that if there's an issue, here's exactly who I can contact.
Amazing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's such a big deal because that's all you really want, right? That's all any patient I ever saw in the ER wanted, was just to be heard and seen and like have someone listen. And that's what I want to show people here.
Yeah,
we're here.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've run into, like the hardest decisions that you had to make about, running Osmia?
I think when you think of like challenges, for me, the biggest challenge is like the business stuff. I don't have an MBA. That stuff is not I'm great at math, but the forecasting and the vision of business growth is like not in my cells. Mm-hmm. That's really hard for me. So a lot of times people are like, what do you want? What's your vision for the company? And I'm like, I don't really know. I just want to keep doing this, and I want to keep growing a company, and we're offering health benefits for our employees starting in January. That's like so exciting. We did it, and there's little pieces like that where I just want to build something wonderful that's good for people and good for the world. And it sounds totally like like, you're a businesswoman. Can you say something more intelligent than that?
But you're doing it.
We're doing it. And I kind of, I'm okay to let someone else sort of help me figure out the exact shape of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really powerful realization that people come to. Not always a realization. I think some people already feel that way and they're comfortable with that. But a lot of people are not comfortable with saying, I need help. And allowing other people to help them. Was that something that came easily for you to kind of let go of the reins on some things and just have people help?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, the product manufacturing was the hardest thing for me to give up because I love it so much and my standards are so high. Fortunately, we have someone who is better at it than I ever was, and her standards are just as high as mine. Yeah. So it works out really well. And I taught her how to do it all, and she does it better than I did. So
perfect.
But no, I mean, I think I've always been the, like sort of pathologically honest type. And if I don't know something, I'm ready. I just say, oh, I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that question. And I would do it when patients would ask me questions. And I always loved to remind myself of an unfortunate colleague of mine in medical school who came in one day and he was scrambling and he didn't check the patient's vital signs, and he showed up to rounds and he was breathless, and the attending physician looked at him and said, "Did you check the patient's vital signs?" And he said, "Yes, sir." And he rattles off the blood pressure and pulse and temperature, and the attending just looks at him for a minute and says, "The patient has been deceased for the last 2 hours."
Wow.
And I thought, wow, that's a really powerful example of why it doesn't work to fake it. It just doesn't.
Yeah. Amazing.
So, I mean, there is a fake it till you make it aspect of this. There's no doubt about that. I mean, there are definitely days where I am like, what am I doing? Like, I left a whole career in medicine to do this, and I
Yeah.
don't know how to do it. So what,
I
so
think
I
I just had one
pretend
of
for
those moments
those
yesterday.
days.
My wife and I, Heather, we were on exactly the same boat yesterday, saying exactly the same thing. She runs a business as well, and I think
Yeah.
we were both. Even as a parent, you feel that way sometimes. You're like,
Oh God, yes.
what
I
the hell
feel
am I
that way
doing? I'm
every day as a parent.
messing
But
everything up. Yeah, yeah, right.
yeah.
What's like your favorite customer story? Do you have, you have all these stories and those great dinner party stories from the emergency room, but what about
Yeah,
from Osmia?
totally. There's so many of them at this point. I became sort of an accidental expert in this skin condition called perioral dermatitis, which you know all about from
Yes.
being all over my website. But it's basically like an angry, flaky, sort of bumpy skin condition in the nose and mouth region that affects mostly women, but men and children and older people too. Like, I have a couple sort of septuagenarians who are working through it right now. And because I had it while I was developing the products for the line, and the products are what helped me sort of settle it down, I've developed a sort of an expertise in it. And so I'd say I have a handful of people, maybe 10 or 20 people who have sent me pictures of their skin, and it's so painful to look at. I mean, it looks like they just scratched at their faces. I mean, it just so painful. And saying, I don't leave my apartment. I don't go to social events. I'm trying to figure out a way to work from home because I can't stand to be seen in public. I stopped dating. And it's on your face, it's right there. It just shatters your confidence. And of course, you want to encourage people to remember that their beauty is so much deeper than that, but it's really hard when it's right on your face.
Yeah.
So, so those are the people where first me in the early days, and I've written a bunch of stuff, and now my team is really, really well versed in how to help people through this skin condition.
Right.
We get these emails back from them, 2, 3, 4 months later, and their skin looks so much better, and they're standing in the sunshine, and they're on a date. I got a text from one of our customers who got engaged.
Wow.
And, in some ways, like, she's like, it's all because of Osmia. And I'm like, no, it's not. But I'm so happy that I feel honored to be a part of that for that person.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's powerful. And I think, I think that's one of the themes that comes up a lot when I speak to people who have just decided to make the leap and do something purpose-driven. Is I think there's always this this leap that you have to make where you say, well, what is soap? You know what I mean? Right? And for me, design or web design, what's design? Like, I'm not going to change the world. I'm not going to like feed all the hungry or cure AIDS or something. But eventually you get to a point you say, like, this is what I do. This is what I can do to make it better, and to change somebody's life. Did you experience that same thing, or is it something that kind of came gradually as you started seeing the effect that it was having?
No, I mean, I sort of always, I know that I'm capable of reaching people. And that's what I want to do, is to touch them somehow. So, but over the last 4 years of the company coming to life, what has become really sort of more clear to me is the number of ways in which this soap company can touch people. That's why I open up my Instagram feed to my personal life. And, I show people that I'm out trail running like every day. I mean, I told you I got to be done with this interview at 4 because I'm going for a trail run today. Like, interview be damned, this is going to happen. Right. And I want people to see that, I'm doing all this stuff that I'm trying to encourage them to do. I'm not out just preaching it. And then, like, I try to capture, I love photography. That's like another one of my missed callings. Like, I see the world like this for the most part. And I try to capture some of those moments from my own life just to give like a gentle nudge to people, like, feel your kid's hand in yours. feel like the sticky, syrupy,
Always sticky. Yeah.
warm kid hand and just drink it because it's going to be gone so fast.
Yeah.
And we work so hard to like get to the next thing, especially when you've got little kids. And I know you know all about this, but when you're like, okay, dinner, bath, book, bed, it's just like, you just got to grind through it. But
and then it's 9 o'clock and you want to go wake them up.
Totally.
And say, what did I do? I just blew it.
Yeah. I mean, I can't get enough of reading to my girls, and they're 9 and 13 now. And I drop into that, hour of reading every night, like it's a jacuzzi. I mean, I can't wait to get there. And that's medicine too, just as much as anything else is just reminding people to like savor their lives, because as far as any of us know, this is the only one we get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
and maybe the only day,
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that's a powerful message, and that idea of almost just curating your life, you know what I mean? And just deciding what you're going to focus your energy on. And it's really similar to the practice of photography, of course, just deciding what am I going to shoot, what is the moment going to be, and that kind of thing. And going through life in that way, where you're being conscious about what am I going to focus my attention on, it's the essence of mindfulness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then to bring that to your products and to bring that to your customer service and even to your social media, I think is not only good life advice, but it's good marketing advice, to say this is my perspective. This is what I'm choosing to show you. And, nobody's life is perfect, but, here's something aspirational. We get enough imperfection just living our lives. We don't need it, in our Instagram feed, so I take that with a grain of salt when people say, social media, it's just all flowers and it's not really how life is. It's like, well, life is how life is. I don't need more of that. I can,
Yeah. No, I mean, I do share a lot of like really unrefined moments too, and I think I just want people to really find the beauty in that it's like, when you go to Italy and pull over on the side of the road and find the old man like pulling the olives off the tree, and he beckons you over and hands you a bottle of this olive oil that's got flecks and stuff floating in it, and it hasn't been filtered, it hasn't been treated, and it's the most beautiful thing you ever put in your mouth.
Yep.
That's the way I want people to, that's the filter I want them to see their lives through, is like, this is so imperfect and we're all totally in it together.
Yeah. So on that note of, inspiration, what would you say is next for Osmia?
I think, this sort of ties back to the difficult decisions for the company question too. We're thinking it through. I mean, right now, what we have decided to do is do most of our sales through direct to consumer on our beautiful website. I love the way the website reflects our brand now, thanks to you guys, but it really does. I mean, I sit on my own website just watching that lavender video. This is cool. But, so most of the sales are direct to consumer. And I think that that's a really important piece of the sales for me, and for our customers, because we do control the customer experience to a degree there. That said, we are in a town of 6,000 people. Mm-hmm. I need a bigger platform.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we have some of our products with Anthropology. That's been a wonderful partnership for us this year. We have a series of really, awesome, small, but growing partners throughout the U.S. brands like the Detox Market and Credo, and these beautiful brands. There's one called Filane on the East Coast that has similar customer service experience to what we strive for. So in that way, I've chosen sort of very, very curated partners because I want our brands to mesh really well.
Right.
But there will be some questions down the line where somebody comes and wants to partner, and I have to make the call about whether it's the right fit. I do want to grow the brand. I want to grow the business. I want, to be able to do more for my employees. I want to be able to, have it become profitable for, the long haul. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not totally sure what that looks like yet. Is it a partnership with, a natural grocery store type thing? Do we see ourselves there, or do we want to, shoot for Barney's or Bergdorf's or what, those are questions we're asking ourselves now. And I think the answer will unveil itself with time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one decision at a time, and then all of a sudden it transforms. Yeah.
Well, when you're small like this too, something comes around and you have an opportunity, and really, I mean, the question is, could we do that? Like, could we physically? I mean, there are days where we're like standing in the back looking at like the soap rack, and it has 8,000 bars of soap on it, and we're like, well, I guess we have to build another one of these, or this mixer's not big enough. Do they make them bigger? And we're like Googling. I mean, that's how you're growing a small business, right? It's just, we're figure it out. And if we physically can meet the demand and it's good for our business and our staff, we'll do it.
How do you feel about growth? I mean, sometimes there's this level of intimidation around business growth where, sometimes people worry, am I going to lose the essence of what this company is all about? Mm-hmm. Is that a thought in your mind, or?
I mean, sure. If down the line, someone came to us and was interested in acquisition, that would be a really big decision for me, because there's so few people who have the same ideals that I do in this business, and that's why I'm not raking in the money hand over fist right now, but I'm sort of organically growing a healthy company. I think of it like, because I've done it twice, like nursing a baby, it's like trying to like get them to drink from the fire hose isn't going to work. You have to take the time, and you have to nourish them carefully and with the right things. And then there's growth, and it's beautiful, healthy, like sustainable growth.
Yeah.
That's
and it's an
how
interaction. It's two-sided. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I didn't, like I said, I don't have business experience, and I didn't go into this. I have a friend who started a kids skincare company, and she went in it with business building aspirations, and she's done quite well.
Right.
It's just a totally different take on it than what I'm doing. So.
Yeah, well.
So what's next for the brand? I don't know.
Yeah, what's next? Maybe coming to a store near you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, hopefully. Although, I happen to like the website a lot, so I don't know that's.
Me too. No, but it's not. I mean, it's true like that. It could be an interesting. I love the synergy. That piece that you sent me from the New York Times this morning. Mm-hmm. The synergy between people with an online presence and people researching you and hearing about you, let's say through the Instagram feed or whatever, and then they're in some store in LA and they're like, oh wait, I've seen this brand, and then they pick it up and then they experience it in person, because there are certain things that really do, especially what we do, right? It's you smell it and you're gonna want to buy it.
Yeah, it's over. Yeah. That's why the free samples and things like that really play such a big role. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that there are some pretty incredible advances and opportunities in terms of how to make those connections and how to really connect the digital and the physical together, and in a personalized way. So if I have anything to do with it, then that's part of the future of Osmia, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that covers quite a lot, and we've kind of hit our time. So I want to say thank you for doing this. And please, to anybody who's watching this, this will be one of the first podcasts. So probably won't be a whole lot of people watching it, but anybody who is, go to osmiaorganics.com and buy some amazing products and tell your friends. And I hope you enjoy it. And thanks for watching.
Thanks, John.